In order to talk reasonably and fully about the mission of the church, we have to first establish what it is that human beings are created for. Genesis 1, of course, tells us that man and woman are created as the image of God. And I think it's important to see that it's as the image of God. That's the proper translation of that phrase. It's not in the image of God as if the image of God is something else and human beings are conformed to some other image. Human beings are the image of God. We can understand this in the light of a temple building context in Genesis 1. God is building a cosmic temple. And like every ancient king, he's the first of the ancient kings. He's the most ancient king. He builds this cosmic temple, and then at the climax of the temple building, he places his image on the earth as a statement about him, as a sign of his presence, as a sign of his claim on his temple, on his cosmic temple. We can think about the image of God by looking more broadly in Genesis 1. We're made after the image of God. That means we're somehow like God. So the question we should ask is, what is God like? What does God do? What kind of God is it that's revealed in Genesis 1? And several obvious things stand out. One of them is that God is a maker. He creates things out of nothing. He forms the world. He shapes the world. He fills the world. Human beings made in his image are also created to be makers. And we're makers in a unique sense. Animals make things. Wasps make wasp nests and beavers make beaver dams. But human beings are divine makers. And what I mean by that is that they make gratuitously. They make things that are not necessary to their immediate survival. To say that man is a maker in a divine sense is to say that human beings are created to be artists, created not just to make functional things, but to make things that are beautiful and glorifying of the earth. And we're also like God in a sense in making things out of nothing. I'm looking at a camera right now, and we didn't pluck the camera off of a tree. We didn't find it buried at the root of a plant. Cameras had to be constructed, and at one time there were no cameras in the world, and then somebody invented the camera, and then somebody invented the digital camera, and now there is something new in the world that wasn't there before. There's a kind of ex nihilo creativity in human beings that's not there in any other animal. So human beings as the image of God are makers. Human beings as the image of God are also speakers. Animals communicate in various ways, but human beings are the only creature that communicates in words and in language. We're the only beings that are made in the image of the second person, who is the Word. And therefore, we not only speak to one another and communicate to one another, and our lives are infused with language, but we're created to speak to God and to be caught up into the communion and the fellowship of the speaking God. Before God makes man in his own image, after his own likeness, he says, let us make man. There's an interdivine communion spoken among the persons of the Trinity, and human beings are created to enter into that communion and to be speakers. One of the other features, I think, of the image of God in Genesis 1 is the relational character of human beings. Human beings are made male and female. Other animals are also made male and female. But uniquely, human beings are made male and female in order to have communion as one flesh. And that itself, that communion, that difference, the sexual difference and the communion of different sexes in the one flesh relation is a distinct image, again, of the Trinity, which is a trinity of distinct persons who are in perfect unity and communion together. So in that sense, too, we're made in the image of God. And then, of course, finally, the image of God is very closely connected with human beings as rulers of the creation. Let us make man in our image after our likeness, the Lord says, and let him rule over the birds of the heavens and over the animals on the land and over the fish of the sea. Human beings are God's rulers. They're God's princes on the earth, princesses and princesses to rule the earth and to glorify it. So human beings are made in order to image God in these particular ways. And I want to focus specifically in this series on human beings as makers. But of course, we know almost immediately that human beings begin to mismake. They make badly, and then we have to be restored to proper making. And that's going to be the storyline of the next couple of episodes in this series.